We got 4 cops out of Chrischan's room.
Holy shit.
I don't know what's going on. They're in Chrischan. They're inside Chrischan's room.
Oh my god. They're arresting her. Sorry. Yeah, they're in Chrischan here at the hotel. Chrischan, what's up?
Give it up, Chrischan!
Give it up, save yourself, girl. That chair will help you. You're beautiful.
Chrischan, or Sonichu, there you go. I'm going, I'm complying.
Is the car alive?
I am good.
Is the car alive?
You are.
I think so. Yeah, you appear to be compliant.
Chrischan Sonichu, your goddess blue heart, and I continue to stand strong, and I maintain everything with quick fill in my Sonichus and those shoes and everybody.
Yeah, you're live to about 3,000 people right now, Chrischan.
At 6 p.m. on August the 1st, 2021, Chrischan was arrested under suspicion of sexual abuse.
YouTube personality called Chrischan.
Christine Chandler.
Arrested in Virginia.
Some pretty tough charges.
It's a pretty dark story.
Accused sex criminal.
Against a family member.
Incest.
Chrischan has often been called the most documented person of all time, and as ridiculous as that sounds, it may not be far from the truth. With thousands of forum posts, hundreds of YouTube videos, and an entire Wikipedia dedicated to her antics, Chris has fascinated the internet ever since she was discovered in 2007. But nobody knew then what she would eventually become.
Pickle-suited.
Feeling good? How's the last few days been? I know it's been pretty stressful.
It's stressful, but I'm taking it one moment at a time, and I got my loves.
Well, that's good.
Josh Boone, did you dirty?
Oh, well, that's just the one thing. That's a kid. Feel free, just go ahead and take it. I just a picture of muffins from My Little Pony.
LoveQuest is over, Chris.
I promise I was not thinking that. It fell off my bag. I did not want to lose it. I have no weed. I have no drugs. So it's sleeping on it. Like I said, frisk me. There you go. I felt good.
Christine, is the merge coming?
All right,
It's happening now. We're on the verge.
the merge.
Bread.
It's happening right now, isn't it?
Right now, it is.
We're living it.
It's happening right now.
Farewell, Chrischan.
On February 24th, 1982, in Charlottesville, Virginia, Christopher Weston Chandler was born. His parents were Robert, aged 54, and Barbara, aged 40. Chris was a relatively healthy baby, but it didn't take long before his parents realised that something wasn't right. Chris was significantly delayed in his ability to speak. He blames this developmental delay on a traumatic event that he experienced at the young age of 18 months. According to Chris, an abusive babysitter named Roach became annoyed after being interrupted on the phone and locked him in a dark room filled with nothing but toys. This event caused such a disturbance that Chris wouldn't speak another word until age 7. Chris wasn't silent, however, and would continue to babble, cry, moan and scream, much to the distress of his parents. At some point during his childhood, Chris was taken to James Madison University for speech therapy. At age 5 or 6, Chris was diagnosed with autism.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Christian Weston Chandler, alias Christopher, and I am autistic. I'm functionally autistic. In this animation, with Wikipedia facts and book diagrams, and in my own words and opinion, we will look into autism, what it is, possible causes, and treatments and cures, and how we autistics should be treated and respected in real-life social situations. First, autism. What is it? In a nutshell, it is a malfunction in the neural development that impairs social interactions, communication, and restricted or repetitive behaviors. In the brain, autism affects many parts. Autism occurs pre-birth, sadly, in mutated genetics within the chromosomes, which can happen when a pregnant mother smokes, binges, takes drugs or certain meds, and other non or real environmental factors. Ladies, get off the drugs now. Another factor lies in the father's age upon child conception. Dudes, have your children before like 40 or 50. Common symptoms of autism include and should be observed to notice little to no eye contact, malcommunication with delayed babbling, unusual gestures, low responsiveness. Try calling their name. In that young age, they seldom respond if they have autism, as well as unsynced atypical vocal patterns. They also will have lack of intuition of other people, lack of attention to social stimuli, and little to no smiling. Parents and guardians should be very watchful and cautious of any autistic symptoms, as they can be obvious by the age of 3 years old. I myself spoke first at 6 weeks with the word monkey in an attempt at saying mommy. My vocabulary and speech grew great until I stopped talking at 1.5 years old, and I did not speak again until when I was 7. In worst cases, self-destructive behavior such as self-cutting, hurting others, and bullying possibly may be apparent. Fortunate for me, I do not go into self-destructiveness. I do not hurt myself, and I do not hurt others. Feeling restricted is also common, staying within their comfort zones with ritualistic behavior, and such. And with repetition in play, we may as well be walking around in circles for infinity time.
During his early childhood, Christopher would often play with his next-door neighbour, Sarah Hammer. Chris considered her to be his closest friend during this period. However, Sarah would sometimes bully Chris. For example, she once told him that Casper the Friendly Ghost was hiding under her house. When Chris went to explore the crawl space, Sarah locked him in until her father rescued him 30 minutes later. At age 5, Chris started kindergarten at Greene County Primary School. It's unknown how well Chris got along with the other children, or how well he did in his early classes, but one can assume he had a difficult time, still being unable to speak a single word. That is, until 1989, 2nd grade. Chris and his mother, on one of their weekly trips to the toy store, started reading aloud the packaging of various toys together. And so, after 6 years of barely speaking, Chris began his life of constant oversharing. In 1990, Chris graduated from Greene County Primary School and transferred to Nathanael Greene Elementary School. But during the 4th grade, Chris would once again experience a traumatic event. According to Chris, the school staff were unable to properly handle autistic children, and after becoming frustrated, 5 teachers pinned him to the ground and recorded his cries for help. He further alleges that the principal forced Chris to sit on his lap and said things that made him uncomfortable. While these claims were never verified, Chris's parents pulled him from public school during the 5th grade and took the case to Greene County court. When Greene County suggested that Chris be sent to a special needs school, his parents relented and moved Chris to Richmond so he could continue his education in a different school system.
Going back to what you can do for your autistic child, you can do a number of things, but of course the most important thing is to positively, emotionally encourage them. And give them hugs anyway, even if they don't want it. They will feel the love eventually, because I know I have. My mom never stopped hugging me. And of course there's also therapy, psychiatry, and special autism places. I highly encourage mainstreaming them, letting them try to fit in with the normal places, like high school and middle school. I fit in perfectly after I so did. But never ever send them to a mental institution. It's just wrong. It's a dark, evil place. I was almost forced into there once, but my parents would not have it.
In December 1992, Christopher experienced what he continues to consider one of the most significant events in his life. Chris and his father went to see the Leonard Bearstein Symphony Orchestra, a fully animatronic bear orchestra. The Leonard Bearstein character is designed to be fully interactive, engaging with the audience at times. What happens next was picked up by the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Since this was early in the Christmas season, on a Thursday afternoon, the crowd was light, Chandler said. The conversation between Leonard and Christopher Weston Chandler lasted on and off between songs, about an hour. Christopher was spellbound. Something unusual happened during that conversation. When Leonard Bearstein, in a decidedly British accent, asked Christopher his name, the bear must have misunderstood what the boy replied. Chris himself expands in a DVD slideshow about his early life. When the conductor asked me my name, I told him Christopher, but apparently he was English since he misunderstood me and called me Christian. The name change settled in. Originally when I was born, my father wanted to name me Christian, but he chickened out and named me Christopher. From that day forward, Chris would prefer the name given to him by God and the bear. Like many kids his age, Chris enjoyed cartoons, toys, and video games. He was particularly fond of the Sonic the Hedgehog character, considering Sonic to be a lifelong hero since 1990. In 1993, Sega held a sweepstakes contest to promote the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon. Chris was one of the few winners and was awarded a $1,000 shopping spree at KB Toys. This was picked up by local news, and Chris made his very first appearance on video.
Finally tonight, Sonic the Hedgehog is running wildly in the Chandler household this weekend. 12-year-old Chrischan Chandler of Charlottesville was the winner in a video game shopping spree. Chrischan is one of only about 100 winners nationally to receive $1,000 worth of Sega games and equipment. Chrischan is autistic, but his entering the contest completely of his own accord was a sign to his parents of how well he is getting along.
What I had to do was exactly watch Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon and I'd listen to what Sonic says at the end of it and write it down for a whole week, and then I had to mail it in and I had to be drawn out of a hat and I just won.
And Christian's father says it only takes a few hours for him to master an electronic game and then move on to another. I can't master any of them. That's it for now.
Winning this contest further cemented Chris's loyalty to the Sonic brand and kick-started his habit of entering contests. When Chris graduated from middle school in 1996, he received a letter from his favourite teacher, Mrs. Sanford. Well, it's been 3 years now at Providence, and it's all over. Where has the time gone to? The most important parting words I can leave you with, well, are to always remember this. You show people where your weak points are located, then they will know how to push your button. If you never show them, they will never know. I hope you will have an enjoyable summer and come back to visit. Do your very best at Manchester. Put your best foot forward and treat others as you wish to be treated. According to Chris, his time at Manchester High School was the best period of his entire life. Chris had few friends up until this point, but in high school this all seemingly changed. Chris had always preferred the company of girls, and at Manchester High School he had a group of female friends called his gal pals, who Chris would spend time with. Chris claims to have achieved high grades throughout high school, even receiving the honour roll every single year. Chris especially enjoyed learning Spanish. Like many students studying another language, he would adopt an alternate name to better immerse himself in another culture. Chris chose the name Ricardo. His enthusiasm for Spanish would sometimes seep into other classes. For instance, in one of his English assignments, Chris begins writing in English before switching to broken Spanish halfway through. In his junior year at high school, Chris recorded himself reading a poem he wrote for one of his classes. This poem borrows heavily from Walt Whitman's Song of Myself and quickly devolves into an autobiographical retelling of Chris's life up until this point. This is the first video produced by Chris, titled Song of Christian.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Christian Chandler Show. Now here he is, the host with the most, Christian Chandler. I'm gonna express my feelings a little bit, so please don't laugh. I'll feel embarrassed.
Much of the video is spent giving context to his poem. Chris shows off his homemade video game magazine.
Here it is, my homemade Nintendo Power magazine. Actually, that's just a cover. I'm working on it on the insides, like a regular Nintendo Power magazine. When I'm done, it should have 108 pages that go on the front cover and the back cover. Right now, I'm only on page 35. I'll show you the pages that are inside it.
He flips to a page about his first original character, Bionic the Hedgehog, which came to Chris as an epiphany after being hit in the face with a basketball.
Oh, dear. And then I have science friend that helps. Of course, Tails that flies, Knuckles he punches and climbs, and Bionic, well, you heard rumors about Bionic. He's that science brother I made myself, who's that very good basketball player and mechanic.
Chris takes the time to air some grievances with other students.
But moving on, the rudeness of the teenagers song. Of course, I'm talking about those despicable, rude words they got there. When they say those, like something like, oh, boop, and oh, boop, and son of a boop. You understand what I'm talking about? That just really ticks me off. And I hope this video is getting through to those students in that English class of mine. I hope to get through their heads and get through to everybody else in that school that rude language is cruel. You see it, and you think it's cool to the adults, but you should never ever do it. It's just rude, very rude. I'm just sick of it. Yeah. And then there's that other thing, the DRUGS. That just clogs up my nose. Yeah. And that other thing, ew. Anyway, it just makes me sick to see people just waste their lives away on that. It's despicable. Despicable. You understand what I'm talking about?
He also expresses anger towards an English teacher who gave him an F on an assignment.
Enough in English class? You have got to be kidding me. An F. I do not even know when was the last time I got an F. Who knows? It could have been back in old Greene County. That stupid place. Eesh. That Greene County primary. Actually, it was a nice school, but then it came Nathanael Greene Elementary. That's why I got the F. Anyway, then many years go by. Then you came along and gave me an F. I started off with an A, and you just lowered it. I'm getting sick and tired of this lowered thing. What do you have against the handicapped children anyway? I know my handicap is autism, and I'm not afraid to admit it. And you, Mrs. Bird, I think that F is very disrespectful. I am very emotional about it. Anyway, I'm going to do my poem now, so here goes. I hear America singing as I sing of myself, and you experience as I experience. The problems of yourself are my problems. The youth of the young singing cries of happiness. The children's song is song of laughter. At age 6 weeks, I sang this song of laughter. Then at 1.5 years of age, the Lord clicked the mute button on me. Those are my parents' songs. They pulled me through the talk again at age 7. I'm now 16 years old and a good talkative tune. Hope to achieve new goals and Mario Raceway records and to finish my homemade Nintendo Power magazine. The magazine songs, the ballad of Sonic the Hedgehog on Game Boy. The rudeness of the teenager song, the despicable mention of rude words, and DRUGS. I'm not afraid to speak, despise the hazardous flukes in America's song. My song that I sing, although I talk well, my peer relationship is low and my loneliness is off the scale.
In 1998, the Pokémon anime began airing in North America and became an instant hit. Chris, like many other children, would latch onto the Pokémon franchise. He began playing the trading card game and dressing up like the main character from the anime, Ash Ketchum. He also started hanging out at a hobby and game store called The Game Place. He would show up every Friday to play Pokémon with the other customers, and it became Chris's favourite hangout spot. Chris was featured in the local news once again, in their coverage of the Pokémon phenomenon.
Like so many other fads, it got started with a kids' TV show, and now Pokémon is a marketing phenomenon. Kids and parents line up every Saturday at this Chesterfield County bookstore, and they dig deep. How much did all this cost?
$30 with a discount.
Then the games begin with Byzantine rules. How do you play the game?
I can't explain it, it's too long.
I'll put out my Dragonair, even though it has 60 damage on it. Oh boy. And now it has 3 energy on it. Slam attack.
So if you had the time to tell me, I wouldn't understand it.
No.
Similar to Bionic the Hedgehog, Chris started creating his own original characters set in the Pokémon universe. He began hanging his homemade Pokémon cards on his bedroom wall. Some of these include Espanolic, a Pokémon found in Spanish countries that confuses its enemies with its language. Goonbol, a Pokémon known for being brighter than the sun. Compufrog, a frog Pokémon made from computer programming. And Plautistic, described as the only Pokémon in the world with autism, and can disable its own attacks. But by far the most important original creation was that of Sonichu, a combination of Sonic and Pikachu. Chris explains the process of creating the character in his Chronicles of Chrischan PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, Sonichu's beginnings. What started as an idea for a CD code for a computer graphics project eventually would grow and grow and grow into his own individual character with stories and more friends and enemies along the way. Dun dun dun! I wanted to feature on my favorite hit CD lifelong hero Sonic the Hedgehog and cute newer character Pikachu, but copyright characters were prohibited from the project. So in my mind, I pondered when hit me usually. Sonic and Pikachu combined. As for his name, well, rumored to be a comparison to Sonic to a combination of Sonic and Pikachu, that was not the case. I originally played the name from Sonic's Japanese name, Sonichu.
On February 24th, 2000, Chris would celebrate his 18th birthday party, a day he would recall fondly. In his own words, "I will never forget my 18th birthday party. It was the best of the rest. The weekend before my real birthday, my mother and I prepared for the party I was going to host that day. We hung balloons and streamers, and we laid refreshments on the table. At the door was 4 of my high school amigas, and one of them brought a friend. We ate pepperoni pizza and drank Pepsi. It was great. As mother lit the candles, I was filling up with ecstasy. After I blew the candles, I was presented with a big jawbreaker from Kelly, an R.L. Stein novel from Sarah, a planner with stickers from Miranda, and a rabbit doll with jelly beans from Tiffany. We watched Good Burger and had fun. After they left, it was done. What did I wish for? I'm not telling." That same year, Chris would attend the senior prom with his mother. His gal pal Tiffany Gowan would ask him to dance, something Chris cherishes to this day. Shortly after, Chris would graduate from high school. This was a very upsetting experience. Graduation for me was a sad one then. I only got recognised for my grades with a star pin, yet they had more fancier awards for more important qualities. I should have been highly recognised for my artistic talents I showed in my many art classes. I had gotten over the award ceremony on the graduation day, but to add lemon juice to an open wound, it was a dark and rainy day that day, and they handed out more talented awards right before handing out any diplomas. When I went up there to get mine, I was feeling depressed, upset, crestfallen and ticked off. When the award was handed to me, I took it without looking anyone in the eye, and I did not shake anyone's hand. I just walked back to my seat in the graduating crowd. Then, soon after, I just walked the wrong way up the centre aisle, found an isolated table and cried myself out. My mother found me later and comforted me. My father was ashamed of the way I acted, and he would later still be angry at recalling the moment.
Back in my teenage years at Manchester High School of Midlothian, Virginia, I had a great number of friends. The closest and majority of were some sweet girls. My circle of gal pals was the best asset and blessing anyone could ever ask for. They understood me, and I understood them. We appreciated each other. We hung out, conversed, and hung out within our classes, like home ec and science and math and even English. And sometimes we would help each other out. It was the best of times. Pretty much. Sadly though, about my high school years, of which I can only complain about, were two things, and I did not realize these till after I graduated. Actually, one I realized mid-graduation, but after graduation, I realized that I was naive on the subject of dating throughout high school. The mandatory sexual education class is good for after date number 3 and so, but how do we even get to date number 1? That's my question. I really would have appreciated a mandatory dating education class alongside sexual education. Also, abstinence is a joke. The virgin breaker needs to happen before adulthood arrives, because being an adult virgin sucks, even for us autistics and mentally challenged. And the second thing about my high school years that I would complain about is my high school graduation ceremony. It was a very depressing day. It was raining, it was dark, it was dreary. Anyway, I went up and got my diploma, and I did not shake anybody's hand. I mean, there were important people there. I did not shake anybody's hands. I just grabbed my diploma, cried, and ran off the stage. Went to a back room, set a table by myself for a little while. Then my best gal pal, Tiff, met up with me, and she made me feel a little better. Really love to see her again, at least hang out for a little while. My high school years were the best and most emotionally encouraging for me. But after graduation in 2000 and moving back to Lane Ruckersville, it was all downhill for me. My adult years suck. I left my heart back at Manchester High in Midlothian.
Chris would rarely come into contact with any of his gal pals ever again. Years later, he would discover that most of these women only spent time with him out of pity and financial gain. Chris's father had been paying these gal pals to spend time with him. None of them saw Chris as a friend. Throughout his adult life, Chris would become increasingly isolated and depraved as the years went on. His slow descent began with his favourite original creation, Sonichu.
I did not have...
That family truly is cursed.
I see dead people.
Only at Blockbuster.
He's won $1 million!
Potential Y2K computer crashes.
Going down south. I'm so sorry. It's a problem.
PlayStation 2.
The Sims.
Hi, Billy Mays here.
After an emotional high school graduation, Chris enrolled in a computer-aided drafting and design course at Piedmont, Virginia Community College, at the suggestion of his father. Chris's real passion, however, was Sonichu. He began adding new characters to his fictional universe, most notably Rosechu, the female counterpart to Sonichu, based on Amy Rose from the Sonic franchise. In the year 2000, Chris launched Quick's Sonichu site, a website dedicated to Sonichu. He also created a Sonichu medallion from Crayola model magic and acrylic paint. Chris would rarely be seen without his medallion for the rest of his adult life. Chris built a Lego city in his bedroom that he would eventually call Quickville. The name is derived from Chrischan's own initials and would serve as the setting for his Sonichu-related characters. On Chris's 21st birthday, he was kicked out of his college English class. Chris initially gave a vague explanation for this, claiming that it was due to his autism, but later he would offer up more details. Essentially, when it came to critiquing the papers of other students, when they started talking about drug use and homosexual content, I wrote with exclamations you'd likely hear from a black person in church. Because his English teacher was male, the conflict apparently contributed to Chris's lasting resentment of men. While waiting for his next class, Chris sat and cried. After realising that nobody was there to comfort him, Chris suddenly came to the conclusion that he desperately needed a girlfriend. Around this time, Chris learned that his childhood friend and neighbour, Sarah Hammer, had started dating a magician named Wes Isley. Chris took this revelation poorly. I started when my lifelong friend, Sarah Hammer, a very pretty girl, was taken away from me by this magician jerk, Wes Isley. At first I was naive about their relationship. Later on, in spring of 2003, I tried to pick up a girl in a class I was taking at Piedmont, Virginia Community College, but she told me right off that she had a boyfriend, and it was like that with every other girl I talked to since then. Thus, I developed noviophobia. Since my fear development, I realised that I needed to attract a boyfriend-free girl, by any means necessary, with limited resources. Noviophobia is a term Chris came up with, derived from the Spanish word for boyfriend, novio. Due to his extreme social anxiety and his noviophobia, Chris began employing increasingly bizarre methods of attracting a boyfriend-free sweetheart. Chris created what he called an attraction sign, a poster designed to advertise himself to potential sweethearts. Chris would hang this sign around PVCC campus and hover nearby in the hopes that a passing female student would take interest. It read, 21 and single, white male, shy, smart, young at heart, computer skilled, humorous, a great thinker and go-getter, natural salesperson, enjoys good parts of life, diplomatic, friendly, loves his family, peaceful, very creative, he's lonely. Seeking a cute 18 to 21, single, female companion, does not already have a boyfriend, average to slender weight / body type, white, lives in Charlottesville or Ruckersville area, does not smoke or drink alcohol, happy, positive personality, average to high income, drives a vehicle. If any men read this huge sign, mind your own business, and to all men with girlfriends, except marrieds and blacks, go jump off a cliff, have a nice day. When this failed to attract any women, he started distributing his own newsletter around campus called Sonichu's News Dash. Each new issue contained poetry, details about Sonichu, and other ramblings, but primarily served as a way for Chris to share his skewed views on various topics and to advertise his desire for a girlfriend. At the end of every issue, he would include an entry with similar content to his attraction sign. He also created a MySpace profile with a similar purpose. These measures proved ineffective at attracting potential girlfriends, but Chris's antics would begin to draw some unwanted attention. Word of his attraction sign soon made it to the Dean of Student Affairs at PVCC, Mary Lee Walsh. After reading the advertisement and realising it essentially amounted to solicitation, she showed up with security and told him to take the sign down, and that he wouldn't get a girlfriend using this method. Chris took this run-in very personally. That evil witch of the private villa of corrupted citizens, Mary Lee Walsh, a bunch of non-blue or black impersonating jerkops, manor jerks, and every other son/daughter of a bitch, mocked me and even crumbled my efforts and threw them into my face. It was serious heart-shattering insults like that which literally shattered my heart to almost nothing and murdered my soul. Like as if I didn't already understand that love can't be hurried, but they all left a huge impression among the general population that having a sweetheart was illegal in Virginia. Thus, Virginia is for virgins, not lovers. Just as Chris came up with his own word for his fear of the infinitely high boyfriend factor, he would expand his vocabulary further with words like jerkop, a combination of the words jerk and cop. Shortly after banning the attraction sign, Mary Lee Walsh discovered the newsletter that Chris was distributing and banned that as well. In January 2004, Chris was summoned to a meeting with Walsh and was once again told that he could not, under any circumstance, distribute the newsletter or display his attraction sign. Chris was furious, writing in his diary, Mary Lee Walsh made it illegal to distribute my news dash. I am very angry at that bitch. In response, I plan to incite the masses and hope they demand the return of the news dash so my chance on getting a girlfriend can be restored. I've also declared war on them as well. As his declaration of war, Chris sent an angry letter to Walsh, which included a drawing of an intimidating glare. Mary Lee Walsh interpreted this as harassment, which initiated an official investigation into the matter. On September 16, 2004, after several disciplinary hearings, Chris was suspended from Piedmont, Virginia Community College for a full year. This gave him plenty of free time to focus on other hobbies and his quest for a girlfriend. During the early months of his LoveQuest, Chris continued to develop the Sonichu universe. He began recording music under the name Chrischan and the Hedgehog Boys, which culminated in an 8-track album of cover songs with altered lyrics. Perhaps the most famous song being So Need a Cute Girl, sung over I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys. On this track, Chris professes his frustration with not having a girlfriend.
I have a boyfriend. Tell me why I'm stuck in a sad, lonely cage. Tell me why I so need a cute girl my age. Tell me why I ain't ever wanna hear you say I have a boyfriend.
In November 2003, Chris recorded an hour-long tour of his Animal Crossing world. Chris included his own commentary along with gameplay, making this one of the earliest examples of a Let's Play, years before the style would become popular on YouTube.
Hello Nintendo! Welcome to my Animal Crossing for Nintendo GameCube. I am your host. My name is Chrischan Weston Chandler. I live in Ruckersville, Virginia. And I is 21 years old. And I play because I'm young at heart. So anyway, we're going to take a tour of my city. So anyway, stepping out is my character, Sonichu. He's wearing the clothes with the character on it. Like I said, you might remember his face. And there's his actual face. You remember the rest of his body, you see the whole picture.
Like most of Chris's projects, he tends to focus on his personal life.
See this logo on here? That is the logo to my website on the internet. If you would like to visit, here's the address. I'm going to leave it up for a few seconds. Alright, that's enough.
He sings a few original songs from Chrischan and the Hedgehog Boys.
Tell me why I'm stuck as a virgin with rage. Tell me why I never wanna hear you say I have a boyfriend. And that was inspired by a real thing.
Comically, the video game characters seem to avoid Chris.
Start. Oop, she just went in. Oh, here's another neighbor, Cookie. She just went in. Alright. There's Aunt Cootie. She just went in. There's Elmer. He just went in. So let's see. Is there anything else I need to cover? Well, I guess not. Anyway, this is the city of Quickville. And don't forget the Sonichu website if you want to go see it. So, we're going to end this documentary by obviously leaving.
This commentary video was featured in Nintendo Power magazine and mentioned in the PVCC news report. Throughout 2004, Chris would begin work on his magnum opus, the Sonichu comic books. Each issue would begin with a disclaimer that would quickly become ironic. Any names or persons illustrated in any of the Sonichu comics, except that of Chrischan Weston Chandler, that may seem similar to anyone in real life, are purely coincidental or otherwise parodic. The 12-page Sonichu Episode 1 serves the origin story of Sonichu and Rosechu. Sonic the Hedgehog is defending the city of Square Station from the destruction of Perfect Chaos. He uses the Chaos Emeralds to transform into Super Sonic and gets launched into a spectating Pikachu. The collision causes Chaos Emeralds to transform Pikachu into Sonichu and launches a rainbow that hits Raichu 15 miles away, transforming it into Rosechu. The newly formed Sonichu helps Sonic to defeat Perfect Chaos. Episode 2 picks up 1 week later with a lonely Sonichu happening upon Rosechu near a stream. He is instantly attracted to her and secretly follows her home to her Pokémon trainer, Kel. He watches as Rosechu expresses her longing for a romantic partner to Kel, who offers her Dragonite for companionship. Rosechu says Dragonite is too big. Sonichu uses this opportunity to knock on the door, and Rosechu immediately falls in love. He comes inside and they eat microwave stew for dinner. A few days later, they kiss under the moonlight. In episode 3, we are introduced to Quickville. We begin at the mall where Sonichu and Rosechu are on a date. Sonichu gets sick from accidentally eating pickles on a burger, a food that Chris dislikes greatly in real life. They are ambushed by a Zapdos and a Battle ensues. Sonichu wins the fight and is thanked by the mayor of Quickville, who happens to be none other than Chris himself. In the epilogue, Chris and Sonichu talk about how incredible the comic book was. Sonichu is baffled at the fact that no boyfriend-free girls have noticed Chris's talent. Chris says he will never give up, as he heads to the mall to continue his love quest. These 3 episodes would later be compiled into Sonichu Issue 0. Just as he vowed during the epilogue of his comic, Chris began hanging out at the Charlottesville Fashion Square during the summer of 2004, hoping his attraction sign would see more success at the mall than it did on campus. An employee working at the mall happened to write a blog post describing an encounter with Chris. Once upon a time, there was a guy who paced in front of Abercrombie & Fitch. He'd come and do it for hours on end, just walking back and forth. He was an okay looking guy, not evil looking, like creepy molester dude, so he would pace for his allotted time, then leave. Sometimes as he paced, he would sing or shout. Nobody really could ever tell what he was saying. Oh yeah, and he always wore the same shirt, a nice little long-sleeved red and blue number that had a gold crest on the left side, and white collar and cuffs. So anyways, someone, I can't remember who, suggested that the next time he looked in, we wave at him. He looked kind of bewildered and sort of scared at first, but quickly caught on and waved back. Then he went back to his pacing, but he was looking into Pac's son with greater frequency now, and anytime anyone would make eye contact with him, he'd wave. I was at the counter and Star was all, "Psst, Anna, he's coming in." "My name is Christian," he said, "but you can call me Chris. I'm Christian W. Chandler." "Oh," I said. "Hi, Chris." "So," he continued, "do angels have names?" I found out later that he meant to say, "Do angels like you have names?" Poor guy was so nervous, he didn't get it right. "Probably," I said, "but I don't know." Chris continues to hit on Anna for some time, and eventually works up the courage to ask the all-important question. So do you have a boyfriend, Anna?" "No," I said. "Oh," he said, brightening, and started to say something else, but I cut in. "I'm not looking for one, though," I said. His face fell again, but this time I felt no pity. "Oh right," he said, fidgeting. "Well, do you have access to the internet?" I nodded. "Okay. Hold on 1 second, I'll be back." So Christian came back and handed me a card with a crudely drawn Sonic the Hedgehog and some other yellow Sonic-looking creature on it, along with Christian's name, email address, and website. It was a homemade business card. "That's my email address, and you can email me sometime, okay?" "Okay," I said, not intending to email him at all. He left the store, packed up his things, and went. His work for the day was done. This blogger's name was Anna McLaren, and incredibly, she soon befriended Chris, finding his odd behaviour intriguing. To prevent further romantic advances, Anna claimed to be a Mormon and a lesbian. Shortly after moving his LoveQuest to the mall, Chris developed a new method that he felt was sure to succeed. Chris attached a red string to a paper heart that read, "Pick me up and bring me to my owner." His plan consisted of throwing the paper heart at unsuspecting shoppers in the hopes that they would pick it up and follow the string back to Chris. Mall security put a stop to this shortly after it started. On September 11, 2004, Chris was arrested and forbidden from returning to Charlottesville Fashion Square without one of his parents. Chris would use this encounter as inspiration for the first Sonichu comic sub-episode. This retelling would act as a power fantasy for Chris, where he manages to defeat the Fashion Square's chief of security using the Kamehameha attack. The Jerkop slips on a banana and discovers that his wife has left him and taken custody of his children and possessions. Chris would often combine the word jerk with the titles of those who dared cross him. In this instance, the chief of security became Jerkop. Chris also began cursing his enemies by using the Kamehameha attack, inspired by the Kamehameha maneuver from the anime series Dragon Ball.
'Twas Christmas Day, and all through the house, the creatures that were stirring were my family and me and our 2 cats.
During Christmas 2004, Christian recorded a house tour video, revealing the Chandler's living condition for the first time.
We have plenty of stuff around the house. On this day of Jesus' birth, upon the arrival of my doorstep, we find SpongeBob SquarePants. And we wander upon our wondrous Christmas tree with a star that was made so delicately and creatively, with Pokémon hanging about, and a Christmas present that was supposed to be for the girlfriend that Santa brought, but unfortunately she didn't show. And now we wander in on my family. Say hello, Father.
Yeah,
Making our Christmas movie.
I see you're wasting your chip.
Well, I'm gonna put it onto VHS anyway.
Alright.
Now the family is up and about. Especially my mother. And now, Mother, would you care to say something to the entire world?
Merry Christmas.
Yep. There's little Lucy in the window.
Chris also recorded his family exchanging gifts.
We are around the Christmas tree. Gonna open presents.
Hooray, hooray.
Okay, well, first off, I have a card from my family. Your father, you read the card.
I see.
I
I'm
did.
supposed to read it?
Yes, read it.
Am I supposed to read it out loud?
Yeah. Read to Mom.
I want to thank you all for your support and love throughout my fantastic LoveQuest movie. And if Santa doesn't bring me one, no Chris, no Tom. Like I asked him, then I'm going to need some support finding a boyfriend free. It'll come, Christian. Hope you all like my present.
Okay.
Today I'm thinking of Christmas and remembering you all. Merry Christmas, Christian C.
Just like the heart. I got you Hamtaro. That's cute. Yeah. It's a Hamtaro. It's a little hamster. It's a little bitty hamster. Oh, that's my present for Sarah. Because, you know, she might come over.
Okay.
So she did last year, remember?
Fraggle Rock.
Britney Spears.
No, Fraggle people.
This one.
There we go.
There you go, Father. Fraggle's on VHS.
You can keep Fraggle Rock in your DVD collection.
Oh, you found it, Mom. It's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here, look, I'm sorry.
Don't break my head.
I'm sorry. Well, here, I got this for both of y'all. Here, Mom, you opened this one since Father opened the car.
Oh, he's good.
No glove. With me in it.
Merry Christmas, Rob.
It's also got Sonichu in it. Look. See? You know, one side, Sonichu on the other.
That's cool. Hooray. Very good. Yay, Merry Christmas.
Hey, Merry Christmas to y'all. I mean, I got y'all a snow globe. I got y'all a snow globe, a video, and a little hamster. You like the hamster, Mommy?
Yeah.
Please.
Sprung.
It came that way. That's the last one they had.
Oh.
That's no problem, because, you know, it can still stand. It's not like it's gonna leak.
Cool.
Well, now this ends our family Christmas of 2004. I did get some nice gifts, but it does not compare to having a boyfriend-free girl that I could make it to a girlfriend. But unfortunately, I was hoping for her to come, but she didn't. My lifelong friend, Sarah Hammer. You know, if she had not been paired up with that jerk Wes Isley, I could have it. But seriously though, I wish she was here so that I could talk to her and so she can help me in my quest to get a boyfriend-free 18 to 22-year-old girl. 18 to 23 as of February 24th, 2005. Well, anyway, that pretty much sums up my Christmas season for this year, so, as they say in showbiz, goodbye, folks. Hello! I hired Harvey Birdman, attorney-at-law, to help me, Christian Weston Chandler, in my case against Bernie Walsh, who years ago shared my heart.
In February of 2005, Chris entered a video contest for the DVD release of Harvey Birdman, Attorney-at-Law. Chris failed to win the contest. He was, however, successful at getting his review for the dating simulation game Sprung, published in Nintendo Power magazine. I originally bought this game because I needed some lessons on what to say to, or do for, a girl. To make a long story short, I developed a fear that all the pretty girls are already paired up with a boyfriend. I've dubbed this social phobia, noviophobia, after the Spanish word for boyfriend. Anyway, before Sprung, I was afraid to approach most women. I tried to silently attract a boyfriend-free girl, mostly with signs, for over 1 year and 4 months. Then, Sprung provided me with general things to say and do, so I felt more confident. When I tried my newfound expressions from the dating simulator, I forgot my fear of the infinitely high boyfriend factor, and I met a couple of lady friends with whom I feel more comfortable. So thank you, Nintendo and Ubisoft, for the dating advice that this frustrated virgin needed. By spring of 2005, Chris was allowed to return to Fashion Square on his own, and finally his attraction sign seemingly paid off. A girl by the name of Hannah asked Chris out on a date. Chris recounted this experience on his MySpace page. Earlier this week, a girl who shall remain nameless in this story finally noticed and approached me. I was very ecstatic, and my shattered heart had a speedy recovery back to 100%. We had a nice mini date. I maintained eye contact. I was very attentive and I took notes about her. I thought she was very pretty. I enjoyed her charming wit, and I found her to be a very nice and lovely girl. But later on, as I was figuring out steps for future dates, I learned from a couple of gal pals that I'd previously made at the shopping centre that my new girlfriend was not serious, that she was setting me up for a prank. I could not believe it at first, so I found and asked her myself. Unfortunately, it was true. I was shocked, and my heart was re-shattered, down to being 15% intact. Chrischan, heartbroken, yelled, "No!" in the middle of the mall, causing him to get banned from Fashion Square yet again. This failed date became the subject of the next Sonichu sub-episode. This was included in the next issue of the Sonichu comic, which also contained episodes 4 to 6. Team Rocket leader Giovanni, his son Nathanael, and Dr. Robotnik attempt to clone Sonichu using his DNA. An accident involving cherry cola causes a mutation, and Black Sonichu, also known as Blatchu, is created. Meanwhile, Sonichu and Rosechu are rushing home for dinner. By happenstance, Sonic the Hedgehog is running the opposite direction and collides with Sonichu. In the confusion, Blatchu captures Rosechu using his superior speed. After a brief argument, Sonichu and Sonic decide to team up and save Rosechu. They find her at the Pokémon gym, but the heroes are ambushed by Black Sonichu and a battle commences. Sonichu is trapped in a glass container while Sonic fights Metal Sonic. Sonic manages to free Sonichu, and together they use a Zap Cannonball attack, sending Metal Sonic to the moon. Chris was on a creative high during the first half of 2005, and 2 weeks after finishing Sonichu 1, his next comic book was completed. We open with an ancient prophecy, which states that the reincarnation of an ancient leader will take pen in hand and combine a mouse and a hedgehog, and give birth to a new electric creature. When this leader places his handmade medallion in the pedestal, he will unlock the ability to transform into an electric Pokémon. These powers will also be granted to his lady and his rival. Chris places his Sonichu medallion on the pedestal. He sees a vision of the Cherokee clan leader, who explains that with great power comes great responsibility, and Chris transforms into a blue Sonichu. The lady and rival mentioned in the prophecy supposedly refer to Sarah Hammer and Wes Isley. Sarah is the reincarnation of a Cherokee princess. Chris accidentally transforms back into human form. Suddenly, Wesley launches an attack on Christian and Sonichu. During the battle, Wesley confesses that he only wants to be with Sarah for her Cherokee crown. Chris uses Yu-Gi-Oh cards to defend himself from Wes Isley before transforming into Chrischan. Chris misses his Kamehameha, and Sarama reveals that she was listening the entire time and shoots Wesley with an arrow, pinning him to a non-sacred tree. Sarah frees Wesley and breaks up with him. His heart is shattered, but the three hedgehogs quickly set aside their differences to battle a giant rock monster that is attacking Quickville. They discover that the rock monster is under the control of Mary Lee Walsh and a purple orb called Count Graduon. The three hedgehogs defeat the rock monster, but Mary Lee Walsh and Count Graduon escape. Later, Sarah and Christian catch up with each other. Chris, seeing that Sarah is now single, tries to hint his way into a relationship, but Sarah reveals that she is interested in a man named William. Chris dedicates his entire last page to Sarah Hammer, confessing that he still obsesses over her, despite having little contact since high school. Meanwhile, Chris continued his LoveQuest in real life. As he was still banned from both his college and the local mall, Chris began using the Charlottesville Walmart as his latest attraction location. Unfortunately, it didn't take long before his presence here was contested. I had my setup at the McDonald's at Walmart, and apparently complaints were made. The two managerks, a senior comic and a black, fat jerk, approached me and took me for a fool with my trying to find a boyfriend-free girl, like I've been doing for the past over 1 year and 10 months. We argued and disputed until the two of them left to call the police. While they were gone, I'd taken off the sign from my Nintendo DS and hidden it on the back cover of my diary. When the Jerkops came, they were all like, "What seems to be the problem?" And the married senior comic was like, "Where's the sign?" And I was, "What sign?" And another argument was had between the four of us, in which I never gave any of those jerks eye contact, because none of them deserved it. Chris was banned from Walmart, but decided to return 2 days later anyway. As he began to set up his things, Chris was approached by the manager. After giving him the silent treatment, Chris attempted to flee. I ran off, still giving verbal punishment, as well as the finger, and many Kamehamehas. I nearly backed up onto him with my car, and I gave him another finger. Then I dashed off. Now I feel sad because I have nowhere else to go to attract a boyfriend-free girl, and I feel very furious with those man jerks, and all men other than myself and my father. Also, the top reason for me detesting those jerks was that they have taken all the pretty girls, leaving me with none. That reason is now number 2 reason. The new number 1 reason is they all are against me finding a girlfriend on my own. But I will not give up on my long and tedious love quest. I'll find a new attraction spot somewhere in Charlottesville, Virginia. There has to be at least one 18 to 23-year-old, boyfriend-free, caring, smoke-free, non-alcoholic white girl out there somewhere. Chris chose Target as his next attraction spot, but in July, he had yet another run-in with security. Chris refused to leave and the police were called. I was slightly intimidated, but mostly annoyed and ready to strike back on them. They asked me to leave and never return. I would have left peacefully. In fact, I was ready to go. But I had a prepared speech to say to them stupid Jerkops, and during the middle of my speech, they chased me, pulled my pants, and pinned me to the floor. 5 Jerkops dogpiled on me as I struggled to get free. 1,000 pounds of sausages on my 180-pound body was seriously a cut-off for my breathing flow. They handcuffed my wrists and legs, and they hog-tied me. Not only did I feel humiliated from being the victim, but I was angry at them, not only for handcuffing me, but once again thwarting my efforts in trying to find a boyfriend-free girl. They drove me to the county jail, but fortunately they did not keep me there. I was released to my family. But now I have to go to court on July 29th at 9 AM at the Albemarle County Courthouse, close to the downtown mall. I learned that the jerkop who arrested me was called Baggett. That was the only thing about the situation that was hilarious. Replace the B with an F, and you can see how funny it was. Chris's experiences at Fashion Square, Walmart and Target would be adapted into sub-episodes 4 through 8. Chris released all 8 sub-episodes as Sonichu issue 4 in September of 2005. From this point on, Chris would stop writing sub-episodes altogether at the request of his mother. In order to return to Piedmont, Virginia Community College, Chris needed to take anger management classes and receive a psychological evaluation. This evaluation made notes of his arrest at Fashion Square, his LoveQuest, and self-diagnosed noviophobia, his conflicts with other students, and his feud with Mary Lee Walsh. And yet, the papers concluded that Chris had no history of violence.
Stop that imposter!
Did not express any delusional thoughts.
My soul does not want to return. Please call 911. Stop torturing my Chrischan.
Had the ability to control his impulses.
A new cheeky breaky! Chile!
And therefore did not pose a significant threat to himself or anyone else. As the next school year began, Chris's suspension ended and he was allowed to return to PVCC. He graduated the following year with a CAD degree. Partly because of his suspension and on-campus antics, it took him 5 years to complete what is normally a 2-year program. Chris decided to wear his high school gown to the graduation ceremony. Unlike high school, Chris didn't enjoy his time at college and would continue to hold a grudge against Mary Lee Walsh, the Dean of Student Affairs, for years to come. In April of 2005, a student happened to observe Chris drawing his comics at the University of Virginia Library and made note of this in his live journal. So Sonichu returned to Alderman today. I'm not sure what to make of him. He sits in his chair and draws his Sonichu comics. Harmless, I assume. Yet, I feel like he knows he's different. He knows that the world rushing in front of him is not his own. Surrounded by the brightest students in America, whatever that means. He sits in his chair and draws. 23 years old. I'm not sure he even graduated high school. In front of him, texts of Plato, Faulkner, God, and Cleese Swirl. Does he have the capacity to understand these works? Whether he can or not, I am not sure. But there is something in his eyes that realizes that there is a level of understanding and thought that he is unable to partake in. As he slumps lower and lower in his chair, With each student he eyes, reading or holding a book, he falls into himself, into the markers and colours on the page in front of him. He seems intelligent enough to understand that he does not understand, and that is the hardest part of all.